Hi, this is Michèle from Dasami Bookworm Podcast, and it's Sunday at the Byres Road Book Festival, and we are here celebrating again. So we've got two fantastic sessions. The first one is with Gordon, that's G.J. Penney, who has written A Penny for Your Thoughts. Welcome, Gordon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And we also have Anne, who was an essential part of helping with reviewing all of the written poetry. Welcome, Anne.
Hello, good afternoon.
So we have a lovely little audience that I think might have questions later, but we'll do a little bit of a start. So my first question is, I hear there's a cute little story about how you started writing the book and what inspired you to do it.
Well, it was during COVID when I started. It was when the lockdown started. Anne's brother was, Anne's brother was in Peterhead, and he was indoors. He wasn't keeping well, and he eventually died up there with nobody, and that's when I started writing poetry. That was my first poem. That was my story, but it's quite a lot of other people just like Joe that was lonely and died, and because of COVID, because nobody came to visit him, because they weren't allowed to, and that was the inspiration for my first poem.
Now, I have to say that there are a few tear-jerkers in there, and that is one of them. But there is a funny one about the wasp. Tell us about that.
Well, again, I was in lockdown, and just things that come through your head. Why did God make a wasp? All it does is sting you. A bee and pollinates flowers. Every time you go outside in the summer's day, there's a wasp trying to drink your drink or eat your food, and you swat it away and it comes and attacks you. So I wrote that down and thought it was quirky.
So Gordon started writing them, and what was your first impression?
I was quite surprised, really, because he's never written anything before, and obviously COVID, you weren't allowed to go out, so that was his escapism, really, by writing the poems. So and some of them are really, really good.
Yes, I think they are. That's why we publish them, of course. But it always is a surprise when a hidden talent does tend to come out. Is there a favorite one that you've written? Even we are going to do a republication next year with additional poetries. But do you have a favorite funny one?
The one Anne's going to read. Hot for Scots. Just typical Scots. When the sun comes out, our skin's not adapted for the hot weather, so we put on factor 90 and we turn a different colour.
Well, that's a perfect segue into it. So, Anne, if you'd like to read it for us, please.
I'll do. This is Hot for Scots. The Scots are a hardy lot. Our climate's not the best. It's always cold in winter, and it puts us to the test. Snow, rain, sun and wind could blow us all away. That can be the weather you get in just one day. To try and beat the elements, we dress like Eskimos. Anoraks and furry hats keep us warm down to our toes. But when the weather changes, you can always tell a Scot. We turn a different colour. We can't take it when it's hot. It's going to be a scorcher, 21 degrees or more. That's what we call a heat wave. We're sweltering to the core. Sunscreen factor 90 for our precious tender skin. We can only stay out minutes, then we've got to go back in. Ginger hair and pale blue skin, we shrivel up like a prune. We're the only nation that gets a suntan from the moon. Woolly socks and sandals, khaki shorts down to our knees. We look just like a wally when it's 21 degrees. It's weather that doesn't suit us when the sun is in the sky. It'll never be cool in summer, no matter how hard we try.
Excellent. I actually love that one. That's one of my favorites. So it's a very small group, but I think if you have questions about writing poetry or what's inspired or kind of what brought you here today, what drew your interest into A Penny of Your Thoughts?
Did you enjoy poetry at school?
Not at school, no. No, at school, there was a couple of poems that I liked, but I was not at school.
Not inspired?
I wasn't inspired. I was inspired by one poem that I heard a long time ago. It was a comedian on the television doing a monologue of The Face in the Barren Floor. It was a poem written way back 1902 or something.
Who recited it?
Ron Moody remember Ron Moody, the actor?
Mm-hmm.
He done it in the command performance, and they wouldn't play it. He cut it down into about 3 minutes. And that kind of inspired me. So a story with poetry, rather than just poetry. The story draws you into it, and that was the first one that inspired me. I think that's what started me. But I never wrote a poem until COVID. I wrote Anne a poem for Valentine's Day once. But apart from that, I never done anything else.
That's always a wonderful one. There was the talent was always there. It was just kind of underlying, and I think that's a key part. Is a theme that we have over the last couple of days when we've spoken to the authors is that they've started during COVID. So the one thing I think it shows how adaptable we are as a society. If we're hit with something that is quite difficult for us, then we will react in a wonderful way by creating beauty. And, and the poetry, is wonderful.
I think it's more like little stories that rhyme. That's the way I like to look at them. They're little stories that rhyme. Some of them mean something. The Titanic. Obviously, we all know about the Titanic, but maybe in 50, 60 years' time, it wouldn't be as popular. So people will read it and, I knew that. There's another one there about SS Slocum, which is another ship that had a disaster in 1904. There was a German community in Manhattan, and over 1,000 women and children died on that in one day. But it wasn't publicised the way Titanic was, and it's forgotten really. There's a little community there called Little Germany in Manhattan, and after the disaster it kind of disappeared. It's not there now. All that's left is a little fountain in Manhattan, in Thompson Square. So that's one of their poems as well. It's a little story, but it rhymes. But the story is true, and it's exactly what happened.
I think you brought up an excellent point, Gordon, is that how I've always advertised it. When I talk about it, I say they are small stories written in rhyme, because they all it is a story about something. Yeah. It just happens to actually rhyme and written well. Has anyone here tried to write poetry?
I was just going I wrote something during the lockdown as well, and it's only about 7,000 or 8,000 words, but I gave it to my niece to read, and she felt it was quite really down and quite bleak. And I wonder, given that the atmosphere at that time, and the isolation, did that influence the tone of what you were writing?
Yes, yeah. Obviously the tone was terrible because it was a terrible time.
And grief as well.
Yeah, I mean, people were dying, and at one part we never knew when it was going to end. We never had a vaccine for anything. We didn't know when it was coming. It's a terrible time, and you're stuck indoors and you have nothing to do. So obviously, if you're writing something, you're in that, as you say, you're in that mood. You don't feel like writing happy stuff.
No.
Sometimes you do. Sometimes you try to get out it while trying to be funny. A lot of people do that when they're under pressure. Maybe I should try that now.
Go back and rewrite it with a different tone. Now that we're at a lockdown.
Just what happened, there's one there, Farewell 2020. That's like at the end of the year, a new year. You give a toast and welcome in the new year. That one was what happened in 2020. It started off okay, and then we had lockdown, and everything that we had, and then we had police brutality all over the place, and it was a terrible year. And then at the end of that year, without having a vaccine, so we never had a lot to look forward to. It was a terrible year, 2020.
There are a few inspirational poems in there. There's one about the puppy, about, well, it's not just for Christmas, but it's...
The pandemic, during the pandemic, again, people would try to get out of it. So maybe a family would buy a puppy to get through. Oh, we'll get a puppy because everybody's at home and nobody's going to school. Great. And everybody's there, take a walk and cuddles and all that. Great. Then the pandemic finished. Everybody went back to school, back to work, and the puppies left in the house in a week. Never thought about that.
So now you've written a few and sent them in, and we're actually going to do a re-release next year with additional poetry. So what are the subjects that you covered in the last few that you've submitted?
Well, one was back to the commemorating the First World War. Went into that one, a rifle and a tin hat, what they went through, the soldiers then, in trenches, and had to go over the top and go and fight. It was a terrible, terrible thing that we done to these soldiers. If they didn't go over the top, they would shoot them. But they had to do it. Other ones, Woody the Barber. It's about after the Second World War finished, Britain was on its knees because we had a lot of things to rebuild and start again. We never had the manpower to do it. So we sent over to the Commonwealth cousins, and they came over to help us. And they were treated like pieces of them. Because they were black, there were signs and doors, no blacks, and they were there still trying to help. This is a story about a black person coming over, staying here, marrying a British woman, starting up a hairdressing business and being really successful. And then, just at the end of his life, the government came out and said, Wingate scandal.
Windrush.
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 All the black people aren't really British, some of them might have to go home. Which was terrible because he helped to make Britain, he helped to build it back up again, and that's the way he was treated at the end of his life. So that's one of the ones.
So when you write a poem and it's finished, how do you feel about it? Is it cathartic because, you've kind of expressed your feelings about certain events?
Well, yeah. I think it's just how I felt at the time about that. When I heard the Windrush, I thought it was unfair, unjust, after everything these people done. And the way we looked at them when they came here, our ancestors, our mothers and fathers treated them like dirt, and we're here to help, and it's different now. Blacks are treated the same as whites, but then they weren't. It was really terrible what they'd done to them.
So writing poetry is very different than writing stories, and although we've recognized that they're kind of short stories written in rhyme, you're inspired by events such as the Titanic and the Slocum, the General Slocum, the Wasp. You get inspiration from different areas. Yes. So, I'm not sure if we're allowed to politically say that anymore, but we'll go for it because this is a creative session. I don't think anyone's going to say anything to us.
Well, the Native American Indian.
Yes.
The Native, that's what it's called, the Native American Indian. So I just said that there, but it's a Native American Indian. Again, they were treated, they were downtrodden. They were on reservations, happily living away. And our ancestors came over and took over the land, massacred them, took them into reservations, and then wouldn't give them a vote. And it was ironic they were singing Land of the Free when these people couldn't get a vote, never had a voice. But that was another poem.
So,
Voice of the Unjust.
which is very important, I think. So for anyone that would like to answer this, what kind of poetry are you inspired by or enjoy?
I think given my experience of poetry at school was negative and kind of put me off poetry for life, but quite like poems that are humorous and uplifting.
Which we do have some in there because the subjects have sounded a little bit, to keep hide all the razor blades, but actually it's interspersed with quite funny ones like the Scots, about that. And I think your observations are also quite funny in different areas because you've brought into places that you've traveled to which ones do you think have inspired you most in your travels?
I think we are a nation that we don't take ourselves too seriously. If we did, it would be terrible, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. And that reflects on one of the other poems. It was England's national animals, the lion, and America's the bald eagle. And the one we've got, it doesn't exist, it's the unicorn. But we don't take that too seriously.
I actually kind of like that idea because I think it's most lighthearted in that the Scots are so strong in all the things that we've been through and lived through, even though I was slightly born over in Canada, but because my family, is ingratiated here and I feel so strongly about it, I think that the strength that we've shown throughout the centuries, is illustrated in there. So what's one of your foreign ones that you like that you've traveled to?
New Zealand, White Island, as you
Yep.
well know, White Island, that was really good. We went there and we seen a volcano, went inside the volcano. And it was only a couple of years ago that the same volcano exploded. Killed about
I don't remember the exact number.
16 people, I think it was. They don't do the tours anymore, but we actually done that, so we're quite grateful.
They don't do the tours anymore?
White Island tours, we don't do them. Maybe had a fantastic day that day.
That was wonderful.
And that I still remember that. We left the pier and there was dolphins jumping and gannets coming down into the sea for food. It was fantastic. And then we went to White Island, seen the volcano. It was a great day. And they've been running these tours for years, but that one day the volcano exploded and the people inside it died and some were really badly burned. So that was uplifting as well.
I am looking for one uplifting here. We're going to get a story out of him that ends with a smile. What about, if I remember correctly, there's one from Nashville?
Nashville, yeah. We went to Nashville and it was, that was a place that's, it's got a street called Broadway, and every bar and restaurant, the group that play in it plays in the window. They don't play at the back, they play in the window.
Been there, it's wonderful.
They've been there, isn't it? It's fantastic. You come down into it and you hear the music before you, it's an atmosphere before you come there. And it's nothing I've ever seen before. Been to Las Vegas and everything, but nothing. I've been to Memphis, but nothing like that. It's absolutely brilliant.
So, see, that's the uplifting and inspirational ones that we do have, because a book cannot contain all of the negativity, and that's what I really like is, as I said, there's ones that, some I've really, really cried, and then some I just end up laughing by the end of it. Is there one that you enjoy most writing about, and how long does it take you to write a poem, or is it various times?
You get the idea first and then you start writing it, and then you have to come back to it. But you get the basic idea and then you get the story and then you start writing. That's the way I do it. You've got to get the story first and then add in your lines the way you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to make it a story first rather than just saying, today I woke up and it was sunny. And you've got to tell the story first. Right. And then after that, you fit it in as a story that rhymes.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I think that's the key part to it, is that, as we've mentioned, that it is a story.
It keeps in the same line. So it's a meaning to it. At the end of it, it's not. None of the poems are. You read it and what was all that? But you know what the story is about, and that's it. Maybe simple, maybe whimsical or whatever. But there's there's a story to them.
Mm-hmm. So you do intend to continue writing?
Yeah, I still do. Well, I've stopped now, but I've done quite a few. A planet far away. Sometimes you look at the sky and you see a planet and you think, I wonder if that's just like ours. And if it is there people up there the same as us? But maybe they were better than us and they treated the planet better. They don't have the problems we have, like rise in oceans and pollution and whatever. An ozone layer and things like that. And
Yeah, I think Mars, they said, started out, as a much more pleasant planet, and because of where we are, we got to keep all our oceans and such. When Gordon has finished a story, Anne, how does he let it sit for a while, or when do you read it?
Well, he usually reads me bits of it to start with, and then once he's further into it, he'll say, "Going to look at that for the spelling." Not that I'm a great speller, I'm not. And he's finished it,
and
and
I'll show you, and then you see that spelled wrong.
Yeah.
You put a comma in
and
there.
whether I like it or not.
There.
Most of them are.
T-H-E-R-E.
There's there, and there. So there's three there's, and they're all spelled
Yeah.
three different ways,
And you can get mixed up with them.
Yes.
You're like, well, what there is it?
Are we going over there, or is it there, or there? Oh, yes, I know. That's English and poetry. I don't know about that kind of thing, or Scots and poetry, I should say. Is there ever been one, I'm going to put you on the spot, but I'm famous for that, that you said, oh, I really don't like this. Should you redo it? Oh, I see a nodding of the head.
I'll not remember.
Which one was it? From the writer himself.
Oh, the Glasgow one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good old-fashioned boozer.
Oh, so question is, did he change it much?
He did change it.
Oh,
Oh, that much, did you?
Yeah, I did change it. I changed it quite a few times. Yeah, I changed it. Yeah, because it was hard to. It was like you get a theme pub, an Irish theme pub, you've got them all over the world. I thought,
My husband, my late husband was Irish, and that was a bugbear of him, the plastic paddy bars,
yeah.
and a washing board and a few things like that. If
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
going to make an Irish, like nothing like a traditional Irish pub,
Well, that's what I was thinking to do for a Glasgow theme pub. What would it be like? Staff that, the way old pubs used to be, the staff were rude. What are you wanting? Come on, drink up, things like that, and that's the way a Glasgow pub would have been so dust on the
Quite a
floor.
few of them up the barrels.
That was the idea I had, but I don't think I ever got that right. I never got that poem right. You didn't like it.
well, it's amazing where different inspiration does come from, and when we look at life around us, and whether it's positive or such, but I think creative talent should be shared, with it. Is there anyone that is a particular, I'll say top three favorite, Anne, rather than top one? You can pick one out of your top three favorites.
The one about Holly.
Oh, that's the new one.
Oh, is that a new one? All right.
Oh, okay. So we
Well, that
still
started when my son asked us to look after a puppy for my granddaughter and my grandson, and it was going to be a Christmas puppy. So we looked after the puppy Christmas Eve. We came down to Vaughan and got the puppy, and then we went to their house at night, and then COVID started. That was it. COVID started. I've never seen Holly for
Good few months, I think.
a good few months. And they wondered, because we thought she was fantastic, she liked us. We only had her for a night, but we always thought, well, she remembered us when we seen her. And it was during COVID, it was April, I think it was. And John came to borrow something, a tool or something, or a drill or something. He came to the door and Holly came running up and wag a tail and everything. And that inspired me to write a poem about Santa bringing the puppy for an old couple to look after. An old couple looked after it, and basically that was the story, looking back.
Are you sure it's not in this version? I remember it really well.
There is a Holly one in it, but it's not that story.
Oh.
It's not the story that would...
Okay.
And the message was Santa gave the puppy to the grandkids. The granddad made a friend. That was a storyteller.
That's probably because I read it when you sent it, kind of thing. Any other questions that you might like to ask of Gordon or Anne about her critiquing? Yes.
So when you've written your poems during that time from such a deep personal place, you know, is it quite scary to put it out there and let other people see?
Yeah. Well, that's why Anne's the first one I tell it to. What I do now is I wait, and I've been doing this for a while. I wait till the poem's finished and then read it to Anne, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, the reaction is important. You know.
Because they all sound so personal, you know, and that's lovely when you're writing them and that, but it's quite a big part of you to share with others.
Yeah, there was one about my granddad. And my gran, it was personal to me, and that's in the poem. And obviously, in the poem, at the end of the poem, I say it as me and as my gran. That was a personal one. But I think it was. I wasn't unhappy about that one. There's another one recently I wrote about my dad, which was. I think a lot of people could relate to that. When you were young and he wasn't there. I was glad he was my dad, but he wasn't there all the time. That's a more deeper one, and that was one I would think people would. If you read that poem, you'd say, "What was that about?" It could be about any of your parents that you had a problem with, and I just put that down. You weren't always there.
So, if your father was absent during your childhood and then you writing about that in adulthood, did that stir up some of the emotions from childhood?
A little bit, yeah. But at the end of it, I say, I'm glad that you were mine. But yeah, it was. Because we didn't always agree. You come to a certain age, you have to leave the house and become a man yourself, rather than listening to your dad all the time. And yeah, it was personal, and it was. I do get. I don't regret it, because when I left the house, after a year or so, I was quite friendly with my dad. We got on okay, but it was early on in life that was, for me, I never ever told him how I felt about that, about being left and whatever. He was an engineer at sea, that's why he wasn't there. He missed a lot. I had an uncle that helped me through all that, took me to football games, and you know.
Uncle Bill.
Uncle Bill, yeah.
Do you think that shaped your personality? That your father being absent?
Well, probably earlier on, yeah. I was a wee bit rebellious when I was younger. Yeah. But I could have been that, yeah.
I remember you looked like, in the old photos, it looks like one of the Herman's Hermits. I remember that. Because you had longer hair, remember? That was.
Well, my generation, I was the generation of the Beatons and the long hair. We were rebellious in that respect. I was talking about different rebellious because you went to school, you were.
I think one of the important aspects when I was reading all the poems before we published them, was that the question that you asked that's very important, how it brings out your emotional part, is that I think these also offer to anyone who does read them to be able to think of something in their own lifetime, and maybe address something that was difficult for them in a gentle way, because it's a third person.
That's exactly what I meant. I mean, you could write a story that's personal to you on paper and publish it, or and somebody else would read it and understand it and react to that and to say, well, it happened to me. I understand that, but it's not about you, it's about them. They put themselves, that's me, it's in that poem.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we've read one. I would read another, but we don't want to give it all away. So, so I just wish to thank you all for your time today and the great questions. To you, Gordon and Anne, for sharing it. Because, again, short stories written in rhyme, and I think it's a beautiful thing. So, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
And so we are here at the favorite part where I get to ask for a shout out, put everybody on the spot. So, Gordon, who would you like to do your shout out to?
Well, the ones that inspired me, the brave ones, and the people that I respected, probably soldiers that had died in the Second World War, and also the people in the poems that have died. Sean Connery, I've done a tribute to him. And my gran.
Mm-hmm. Oh, those are beautiful. And who would you like to do a shout out to?
I'd like to do a shout out to my family, my son and daughter, and all my grandkids.
I think that's the best. Well, thank you very much again for joining us today. And my shout out is to all of those creative poets who give us so much of themselves in their poetry and give us so much enjoyment as we've done so today with Gordon and Dan joining us as well. Thank you very much. This is Michèle at Dasami Bookworm Podcast. As always, wishing you a sunny day.